talking, listening and writing at the same time, I can't guarantee I'm going to get everything written down. So that's really helpful. I guess it might be useful to understand what sort of regions or areas you might have knowledge on. So whether it might be useful for this group to focus on a particular area, or a few areas might give us an idea of how we might want to lead the time or use the time that we've got. Perhaps we could sort of go around and you could tell us a bit about your knowledge area. Could we start maybe? So I'm going to go around the table, make it easy. Nicola.
Hi, yeah, so I'm the catchment coordinator for the Avon, so that's where I'll have most of my knowledge is the Avon, but obviously I work with colleagues across the Severn, so I might have some ideas for further up the catchment as well.
Should we go on to Simon? I haven't got all your names up here, I've just got your surnames.
Oh, sorry. Hi there. Yeah, I think I've been lurking in the background a bit because I'm a geomorphologist. I'm not sure how relevant this is to me, but I have sent an email to Sue Neal highlighting that I think there's some opportunities in linking habitat with the transfer scheme, but that relates principally with the pipeline corridors and things like that. So that's the kind of suggestion I've thrown into the mix. But my patch will be pretty much. I used to cover bits of Mid Wales through Shropshire and then down through Worcestershire. So that's my geographical best knowledge in terms of the maps we're looking at.
Marvellous, thank you. Jennifer.
Hiya. Yeah, I'm the senior ecologist for North and Mid Wales for NRW. So I'd like to say my patch of expertise, but having only recently taken on this role as such, the Vrenwy is still a learning curve for me as such. But yeah, it's right up at the top is the bit that I'll know best.
Okay, marvellous. Thank you very much.
Oh, the other thing is, I am really sorry, but I have to go at 3.
Right. Perhaps
So,
that's a good. Maybe we'll start with you. Daisy.
Yeah, hi there. We don't work to patch models anymore so much in Natural England. So I don't have a patch, but it would be generally the protected sites and mainly the meres and mosses. Yeah, so in Shropshire and Staffordshire.
Okay. And Martin.
Hi, sorry, I've only just joined, but I'm within the analysis and reporting team in West Midlands Environment Agency. But I have been working in this patch and based in Shrewsbury for the last nearly 20 years. So I do have a bit of understanding about the Paris part of Wales as well, because we used to cover that. So yeah, I do know the area reasonably well.
Okay.
And being a Shropshire boy as well. So yeah. So I've been in the area for all my life.
So in that case, there's some overlap with Simon's area, Daisy's area. There's an overlap between yours, Martin, and Jennifer's area. And it sounds like, Nicola, you're holding the fort with the Avon and Severn. Great. So given sorry, I can't remember whether it was Daisy or Jennifer that said that you're going to need to leave at 3.
Sorry, it's me, Jenny. Yeah.
Jenny, okay. Jenny, is it worth starting with you to see what opportunities you are aware of in your area, what local ambitions you might be aware of?
Possibly. I think the main sort of comment possibly from us is that, you know, we're looking for a final outcome of, you know, a biodiversity net gain or some sort of improvement, but so far it seems to be sort of detriment to this region rather than improvements being flagged anywhere as such. The only thing that I do recall, and I don't think I'm imagining this, is that did you find pearl mussel DNA in one of your surveys? That's a possibility to look into. if you've got them there and we didn't know they were there, that's a really good opportunity to try and help something that's struggling in a lot of places. But yeah, as I say, it is very much a sort of newish area to me. That sounds like an excuse, so I apologise. But yeah, I think from the Wales side of it, there seems to be it's pretty much sort of take rather than there being any give for Wales as such at the moment. We haven't seen any sort of mitigations or improvements that could help us so far as such.
And are you aware of any, maybe more with designated sites, but we did talk about non-designated sites and the opportunity to look at functionally linked habitat to protected sites. And I don't know whether you're aware of any protected sites that might have sensitivity in the surroundings where there could be opportunity to buffer those with some habitat enhancements.
I've no doubt that there probably are. Unfortunately, I really do appreciate that. Unfortunately, NRW is quite poorly represented in this, so apologies for us for that. Unfortunately, it seems as though most people are sick at the moment. But anyway, yeah. So as far as the protected sites and things go, I'm sure there must be something that we can do. It's just I'm not the protected sites person. I'm afraid I have a very sort of slight knowledge of this, so apologies all round. I'm a really poor person to have in your group.
No, not at all. The great thing about it is, Jennifer, that it helps us then identify who might be the right people to go and talk to, because after this session, we'll then have one-to-ones with other people that we can catch up with. So even if you've got an idea of whom we might go to, that would be helpful.
I can definitely get some names and go through some things with Tracy, who's in one of the other groups, because she's been involved in this right from day one and collates most of our meetings and things. So Tracy's a fantastic person to be able to get names from to start with. But yeah, unfortunately, that's probably about all I can say, and I'm really sorry because it sounds a bit rubbish. Right. But yeah, apologies. It is interesting to hear other people's views, which is why I'll be listening to the rest of the recording, because I've got to go. So unfortunately, sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. And I notice here that Janki's just pulling up locations. Are you pulling up locations of protected sites here?
Yes, I am.
So this is one of our data layers.
SAC Ramsar site and SSI around Wales, as well as the niche reserves.
I mean, yeah, the opportunities are there by the looks of it. We just have to be able to pull those together to make sure that there is a net gain for Wales. I appreciate it's a very small section for the whole stretch, but then again, you know, it's where quite a lot of the water's coming from. So, you know, it's we've got to make sure that we get some improvements out of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the other challenge as well. So we can look at these layers that give us an idea of where the potential opportunities might be. It's having a look at sort of where the realistic opportunities might be, and where there might be sort of local groups that are already working on projects that could do with additional funding or anything like that. So I suppose it might be if there are any other organisations you think we could be contacting at this stage that might have projects going on the ground.
I'm sure there are. Again, I will have to I think Tracy and I need to have, well, we need to have a sort of separate NRW get together to look at these areas in detail, perhaps get some of the environment management team in as well, because they're more likely to know about the separate groups and things like that, and additional stakeholders we'll be able to put you in touch with. So yeah, once we've got, having these maps will be really useful. We can set aside a separate meeting with Tracy and, as I say, perhaps with some of the EM teams, and hopefully we can gather some more information and get you a better list of stakeholders.
Thank you. And what sort of data would be interesting to you? I mean, this is a very, very comprehensive database, but for you, what would you need, do you think, that would help you?
Well, our first stage would be getting around the table, having these maps. And then I think from that, we'll be able to dig out who we need to be able to contact and what they might need and what we can give them, and then what we need to get from you. So it's yeah, once we've got together and tried to come up with some ideas, then I think we'll be better off knowing exactly how we're going to come back to you and get what we need.
And I suppose in terms of the habitats, Lawrence mentioned earlier the sorts of habitats we might that we are potentially losing along this pipeline route, to give you an indication of what we'll need to replace. Would that information be useful to you? An idea of the areas that we're looking to compensate for? I mean, there's a lot of habitat we'll need to compensate for here. I don't think, if you listed all the projects that are going on, I think all of those would be useful. I don't think we could rule out anything at the moment, because it's all about locality as well as the specific nature of those projects. Some might not be suitable or not be at the right stage. So yeah, I don't think we're going to need to limit ourselves really at the moment. But if there's any specific data that you need Jenny to help you, then let us know.
Yeah, as I say, as soon as we've had a chat, we'll have a bit of a get together, and then we'll get back to you as soon as we can with any requests. If that's okay.
Amazing, thank you, Jenny.
Great, thank you.
Does anyone else have any contributions to look at opportunities within this area of the catchment?
Also, feel free if you need control to kind of zoom into specific areas.
I was just going to say, I would say that I agree with Jennifer, but it'd be really interesting to find more about the pearl mussels. We've always sort of wondered whether there would be pearl mussels within the Vyrnwy catchment. So to have had that eDNA positive result is really, really good. And obviously they require really very, very high quality water standards with cool water as well. So those are the sort of things that, you know, would also help salmon and other important fish within the sections as well. So
okay, thank you. Had a message come through. All right.
Sorry, that might be my message, which goes on a bit. It's
yeah, wonderful, Siren. Now you can tell us all about it. Sorry.
Someone just told me to put that in because I shared it as an email with Sue Neal, and she said everyone needs to see that as a suggestion anyway. But it relates more to the connection towards as it gets closer to the Thames end of things. I think where we might be creating new pipelines or new corridors.
Okay, sorry. So your suggestion here is about, I haven't read it yet, but it's about a section closer to the Thames. Is that what you're saying?
Sorry, basically it's saying that wherever we are constructing pipelines or whatever, obviously usually that's done via an easement where you cut, stockpile and bury your pipe and fill it and return it back to its previous land use. But there is an opportunity where that's occurring to actually say, well, why don't we acquire the land and create a corridor, and then rather than the pipeline becoming a local impact, it becomes actually an asset, because you can actually create linking habitat. But it would be a bit of a ground change in approach, going from just burying something underground and forgetting about it to actually making it a physical route that had some sort of, you know, habitat benefit as well.
I see. And so, yes, and I'm wondering how we can explore that at this stage.
It's just logging it as a thought process really, rather than anything else. It doesn't relate to what we're in this breakout group actually doing. I mean, because obviously we're dealing with the top end of the transfer at the moment.
Okay. Okay, I think we can come on to that, or we can come on to that next, I think, because I think we've covered the top end of this transect, unless anyone else has got anything else that they wanted to add.
I mean, it might be worth saying, I did some work with the RSPB estate that is around Lake Vyrnwy, and obviously they had their Berwyn and McKnight life project on the Blanket Bog around there, and they did lots of really good work in terms of restoring Blanket Bog through grip blocking and stuff like that. So that relates to the designated sites and the European sites, and that's something that could be expanded on. And I'm sure if there's money or initiative available, then RSPB would be certainly up for that.
Okay, thank you. How many contacts did you know? Anyone who was involved in those projects? You might be able to.
I think well, the trouble is that the chap who was involved, which was Mike Morris, is then became the director for Seven Rivers Trust, or another contact organisation you might wish to add to the list. But now Mike has moved on yet again, so you'd have to go to just the RSPB and just try and seek who is actively involved with the Vernwy estate and what projects and initiatives they're running currently. The good thing about the Seven Rivers Trust is they deal with the River Severn all the way through. It's not sort of England or Wales based, so they will be operating from the headwaters all the way down through to the Lower Severn.
Okay, thank you. So I suppose we could move a bit further down the catchment now. Was there a background noise from someone maybe set in a room with other people? Would you mind putting yourself on mute until you want to talk? Thank you. Probably moving on to Nicola, I think, next, as we move further down. Where are we now? Oh, by the way, if you would like to talk about your particular area and show us on the map what you're talking about, you can gain control and point on the map. So if you'd like to do that, Nicola, and zoom into any areas that you want to talk about.
I can, yeah, let me know and I can give you control for that.
Well, mine's mainly the Avon, so it's from sort of, I think previously it was like Coventry down to Tewkesbury.
Okay.
So unless anyone else wants to speak about Shrewsbury and down before.
Yeah, okay. I think we had, Martin, that was your patch. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to Shrewsbury.
Nothing specific that I mean, I haven't really been involved in a lot of the projects. We're looking more at the actual ecology within the rivers. So, you know, we obviously wanting the flows to improve for migrating fish. But I haven't got any specific projects that I know of that's going on or anything like that within the actual Severn corridor itself.
And through the work you do, are there any areas that have got potential for that more than others, or any opportunities that you see rather than knowing specific projects? Do you know particular areas that could benefit?
And there's definitely stuff all the way around the Severn Vernwy confluence and things like that. There's lots of potential for wetland, I'd have thought, within those areas.
Janky, you're just adding a few.
Yeah, so I'm just adding in, oh, I'll remove that one. I've just added in the SSI, the special protected areas, the source protection zones, the areas of conservation, Ramsar sites, and natural nature improvement areas from Natural England's layer. So let me know if there's any more you need me to add as I kind of go along.
Martin, would there be anything else from our data set here that would help you to identify the opportunities, or do you want us to zoom into anywhere and talk more specifically about any areas and we can see what else it links with?
Nothing specific that I can think of at the moment. Again, I'm sorry because I've just come into the meeting. I've sort of not had a lot of prep time for it, so I'm not.
Do you think that's absolutely fine? I need to apologise. Do you think the information is there for you to be able to answer these questions? Is it available somewhere? Is there someone else that might know, or what might we? Is it? I don't know. There's another contact or. Yeah,
well, potentially if you're looking for projects or anything, so you've got Nicola Edgar on the call, but Guy Pluckwell is the catchment coordinator that covers this section. 7 Shropshire Middle 7 and 7 Uplands.
Yeah, I think on the SharePoint we captured about CABA groups, but there's only myself and Lucy on the call today who are catchment coordinators, and we cover lower parts of the Severn and Avon. But like Martin says, there's Guy and Karen and a new member, Emma, who also covers the Upper Severn and the Y. So I suppose contacting us as a team for those lists of our projects and MTP going forward is probably a useful position to have.
Okay, thank you. And how might it? What's the next step, I suppose, to getting in touch with the right people, being able to get those people together? Nicola, would you know who we need to speak to?
So Matt Lawrence is our team leader, and I think I had a call with Alison Williamson last week, who invited me on this call, and I think she's coming to one of our team meetings to discuss it. So I guess it's having that information for us to go through as a team.
Okay. Okay.
I'm going to continue kind of moving down the buffer, so if there's any areas you'd like me to zoom into or out, please let me know.
And Nicola, what information do you know about opportunities within these areas? I know you say you've got a team that knows more about specific projects, perhaps even more generally.
Yeah, so as a team, we work with CABA groups and the Rivers Trust and Wildlife Trust to deliver projects and bring EA funding to deliver them. So it's particularly focused around WFD failures, but generally the catchment-wide delivery over multiple years. So focusing on ag diffuse projects and also urban projects. So yeah, we've got a whole MTP that will probably have loads of projects that would overlap, and the contacts for who's leading them externally.
Okay, that sounds like exactly the sort of thing we need, really. And so it's trying to sort of get map these areas really as opportunities and look at the scale of them to see whether or not you know, these be useful for what we need to cover, or whether they, you know, how many of these opportunities we need to pull together and what they look like, because at the moment the impacts, you know, the assessment of impacts is still developing. And so our understanding of that, as our understanding of that improves, then we can look at these opportunities and match those opportunities up. I'm really sorry, but someone has decided to do some tile cutting right outside my window. Sorry if you can hear the background noise, hopefully you can't.
I think the only thing to flag is, like with some of my projects, for example, on the Avon that you've got highlighted there, a lot of the delivery is outside of the zone, because it's kind of doing that catchment wide delivery to then help improve lower down the catchment. So for example, you've got Ulster just outside of the blue margin, and we've got projects going upstream of there to help deliver goals for Ulster itself. So that's where some of our projects might struggle to align with the sort of the corridor that you've got.
And that's really useful because so yeah, work out, as you're saying, work outside of this zone, further up the catchment. It's going to have benefits further down the catchment within the zone that we're talking about. Is that?
Yeah,
have I understood that
particularly
correctly?
with the Avon, the option on the table, isn't it, to have Minworth effluent? So it's that water quality balance and making sure that we're improving it as much upstream of that as possible, so before that comes in as well. Yeah, trying to. I know from HS2, it's a slightly different project, but obviously had similar goals on net gain. They had sort of the initial line of this is where we want to deliver some, and then they had a wider line of a certain percentage that they could deliver outside of gains as well, to allow for that catchment scale. So whether that's something you want to have an approach on.
Okay. And the projects that you were talking about, the more specific projects that you were talking about, with these, you know, would they also be on a more of a catchment scale, or are these more specific? I don't know if you know of any sort of more wider catchment scale initiatives.
Obviously, there's the River Severn partnership. I think that's been captured, but again, that breaks down into like numbers of projects within the catchment. On the Avon, we've got a Stour project, so it's still a sub-catchment of the Avon. It depends what you classify as a catchment compared to a site-specific within them. And then those projects themselves will have a pipeline that's site-specific.
Yeah, like there is the Reaction project in Shropshire, which is, you know, a river that flows into the River Severn at Shrewsbury, and again that's very similar to what Nicola was just expanding on there for her project, that it would have impacts on the main Severn itself, so but not actually within your corridor.
Yes. And I think that's the thing about putting this 5k buffer. I think at the moment it's just an idea to bring our thoughts locally, but this is really important to actually consider that we may need to, particularly for rivers, not necessarily for habitat loss, may need to expand beyond that for very good reason.
I think one of the questions on the SharePoint was about sort of those where you can deliver multiple benefits and things. So I think that would be interesting, is where projects overlap, even if their aim is something else. For example, if the aim is water quality, how that is still delivering measures that have a biodiversity gain. I think you mentioned about woodland being lost as well. I'm not sure where it's at the moment, but within the West Midlands, they're looking at tree planting for carbon offsetting our FCRM programme. So there's potential to see where that's going with woodland planting and maybe group them together.
Okay.
For like local landowner knowledge further into the Severn Vale, I don't know if this has been mentioned already, but FWAG are really active in that region and have like lots of projects going on. And so they might be another group who are good to talk to.
Thank you. Thanks, Daisy.
Yeah, and FWAG are really good. They've got the detailed landowners, and then if you again looking at tree planting, you've got Heart of England Forest, which is Worcestershire, Warwickshire, and some of Gloucestershire, and
yes.
Yeah, they've got massive sites and landownership. So they're quite a key partner for some delivery in that area.
Natural England also will have our CSFOs, which have patches, but I'd probably need to have a bit more of a targeted question before going to them to find out about opportunity areas. So understanding, say, a patch or something. But...
and I understand the difficulty of this on a scale that we're working on.
Yeah,
because you end up collecting so much data.
Such a large, they're so spread out all around that. So there will be projects, but it's just, if you do a scattergram approach, trying to get information is just incredibly difficult. Yeah.
How would that work? I mean, the idea is to stay as local as possible. So if you've got lots of opportunities within an area like the area that we're looking at now, I mean, ideally, we want to be able to then give you more information on exactly where those losses occur, so we can go to somewhere which is more localized. But it may be at this stage we look at an example area if we can't go into that much detail. We should be able to. So it may be that we can look at exactly where the habitat losses are from our data and give you a smaller buffer area to focus on. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think also just like, I know I've mentioned this already, but like I'm trying to, I suppose in terms of your biodiversity net gain, you want to deliver something which is like joined up and is going to have kind of like an impact which is bigger than the individual parts.
Exactly.
So if you have a strategy for that, and then if we understand what that strategy is, that then helps us tailor who we start to go towards and which areas we're looking at. But like biodiversity as a concept is incredibly broad, and so it's quite difficult to just know where to even start with that.
Yes, and I think that's why we're looking at seeing whether between yourselves there are opportunities where they overlap, seeing where we've got the opportunities that we've got from our desk study here that Janki's showing you, whether there's overlap between examples that you can give and what we've got here, whether they fall under natural recovery networks and things like this, whether there are wider benefits that we can consider. So I think at the moment it's building up a picture of the strategy is to build up a picture of where these overlaps occur. So the data sets that we've got for you here, I mean, we're not turning on all the layers because it would be difficult to look at, but I guess that would give you a baseline of this is what your starting point is, and this will show you where there are potential opportunities that are already identified strategically, and perhaps some that would be conflicting. And then sort of map the opportunities onto that and see where we can get those those multiple benefits.
Yeah, it's worth saying I spoke to our one of our like principal advisors for biodiversity net gain, like with the questions you put out, and they've had like recent kind of updated guidance to say that you can actually work within protected sites to deliver biodiversity net gain, but that work just wouldn't be able to help deliver favourable conditions. So within protected sites you have like site fabric features and like supporting elements, or if it's already favourable, so it's quite difficult to distinguish the two, but measures which help deliver those statutory obligations obviously aren't available through biodiversity net gain, but other kind of like wider biodiversity opportunities are.
I get you. So yeah, I understand the separation, excuse me.
Yeah,
statutory requirements, and then there are additional things that we could do to continue to improve, enhance, or broaden the opportunities within those designated sites. So great. Well, that it's good not to rule those out, and I suppose that's why we're looking at non-statutory designated sites, because we then have perhaps more scope, but and bringing those, improving the condition of those, but it does open up large areas then for us to be able to do some work. I guess the challenge might be in what we're needing to offset, and I guess if we're losing things like grassland and woodland, we may be able to do further improvements in woodland, but we wouldn't be able to plant up areas of woodland within a designated site, I wouldn't imagine, because of its existing designation. So I think my initial thoughts would be there would be opportunities there. I don't know how big those opportunities would be. But it's certainly something for us to consider. And I guess I don't know how you document at the moment where those opportunities might be and who we might need to go to speak to them.
Yeah, I don't think they have been documented, to be honest with you. I don't think there would be a list of sites, but yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I suppose as biodiversity net gain becomes statutory, that's something which will hopefully develop. But yeah, it's all just so new, isn't it?
Okay, I'm just mindful of the time. We've reached 3:20. I wonder whether you'd like to have a little break at this stage and we can come back and carry on, perhaps a 10-minute break. We're going to continue until 3:45. So gives us time to think and then regroup and come back and talk about the other regions. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Silence is a yes. Great. Okay. All right. Well, we'll meet at my clock is saying it's 15:23, so we'll just meet back in 10 minutes with everybody, if that's okay.
Yep. I'll share my screen so you know I'm back here.
Great. Thanks very much. Okay. Hello everyone, just seeing whether we're all back yet. I think
Oh, I'm back. I'm not sure. Guess raise
I'm back.
hands or there you go.
I think that's everyone now. It's able to return. Marvellous, thank you. Right. So the next section of the catchment then, Janky, we're moving further down.
Yep, I've kind of stuck around Cheltenham, Gloucester area. I can go down further if anyone wants to point out anything in particular. If they'd like me to kind of zoom into anywhere else or kind of switch on any other layers.
What would be useful for you all to know at this stage to be able to, I guess, identify what, you know, where there may be opportunities for multiple benefits, or sort of maybe target the areas that you're looking at from the data that we've got? That'd be a bit of an open question if you don't know what data we've got.
You've mentioned sort of the different types of habitat. Is there a time frame on some of this? Because you've talked about landowners and projects. When I had an update on this previously, it was delivery in 2040. I'm guessing they're not going to want to deliver net gain 10, 20 years in advance. And the projects that we're going to be giving you are delivering either now or in the next few years. So it's what do we want? Do we want the projects that are delivering now so that you can expand them, or are we wanting where are future projects that can give landscape scale delivery?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that's one of the challenges in identifying exactly when this is all going to go ahead, really, because those projects that are turning over now, clearly we're not going to be able to mobilise in time. I think that's why we're trying to look a bit more strategically and trying to look at, but you know, broader where are the opportunities lying, as well as honing down on projects for that very reason. I don't know if I can give you an exact timescale, and I think that's tricky, but perhaps there may be others that might know a bit more about that, and I might be able to get back to you, Nicola. I guess, you know, is this question even realistic? Are you aware of projects that might come forward within 5 years, or are you only aware of projects that are turning over within the next 12 months? I don't know what your knowledge is, or your access to that information, or how things are planned. Yeah,
so our MTP is 6 years, as is our flood risk. So, and then as we move to the end of that, we obviously start planning the next 6. So it's not going to get us all the way up to the 2040, but it might give us an idea to be able to build where we can see that it can help deliver this, or where, you know, mutual projects rather than working separately.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I think this is where it would be really helpful to have like a vision of what you want to deliver for this scheme, because then if we understand that, like that would kind of like set the framework for looking and understanding future areas, and then working down to that kind of like smaller region and then landowner scale. So really knowing what the kind of like main big outcome you want is in terms of biodiversity net gain as well.
In terms of the habitat loss and what would need.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of mitigation.
Habitat loss gain, and like what kind of the bigger plan for biodiversity net gain is for this project.
Well, I think this is part of it. Unfortunately, it's a bit of the two things kind of run alongside each other, because at the moment we know what we're going to lose, but in terms of what we replace, there are rules around that. You can replace like for like, but you can also provide something that's better. So at the moment I could say, well, you're going to be losing X hectares of grasslands, and so we need to create or restore or improve the condition of X hectares of grassland. But also within that, there's flexibility to also create and improve other habitats. So what I don't want to do is actually, I know this makes it awkward, is be too prescriptive and say this is exactly what we need. Partly because also that the pipeline isn't necessarily, it's not a, fixed in stone, but partly because biodiversity net gain and the way that it works gives us flexibility to be able to work within that to deliver on a wide range of projects. But I know that's not particularly helpful, and this is a really challenging part of this process, I think, is that we're not looking at a development site where you've got a very fixed habitat loss that we can then say this is exactly what we're needing to replace. Broadly speaking, Lawrence was talking about the loss of, woodland, grassland and arable land. Really, we're looking at, sort of the grassland and woodland being the crux of that, and the challenge of finding opportunities for offsetting woodland loss will probably be one of the greatest challenges. Some of those priority habitats, and we can have a look at the priority habitats within here, and we can let you know what priority habitats are going to be within the route. But we can also, so that may give you an idea of specific sites that that might tie into delivering that. But it may be that we can avoid those, and we're looking at a strategy of avoidance. So I think that's where it becomes difficult, Daisy, and I'm sorry if that's not really being very helpful, but that would be as far as we could probably get in terms of giving you an idea, but keeping it quite loose. Do you see?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you. Did you undertake the River Morph surveys this last season? Will the results of that be coming out in Gate 2?
Yeah, so that will be incorporated into improving our knowledge of the baseline for both the UK hubs and the River Morph.
Okay, great.
Simon, I saw you had your hand up. Is there something you wanted to?
Yeah, just sort of, I assume that the BNG is a 10% net increase, is it? Because, I mean, that's the national steer, but I know the Environment Agency has a 20% net increase as our target. Can we just confirm what the net increase is for this project?
We've been looking at a minimum of 10% net gain.
Right, okay.
So if we were taking a theoretical situation now, I suppose, Daisy, if we were to give you some habitat types and areas lost, or I mean, we know that, specifically put on a map the particular rivers that may be subject to degradation. How would that help you, or what information could you then tap into to be able to come back with some examples?
Would that be like location specific then?
It might be region. Yeah, we could do it sort of regionally specific. So sort of break this area up into smaller areas.
Yeah, I think that would then just really help target who I then go to with it, who I know who's working within those areas, and looking at protected sites within those areas, and like functionally linked land, to then be able to get in contact with the right people within the organisation. I think just because at the moment because it's so broad, it's just knowing really where to start, and the kind of amount of work it takes to find out about specific projects. That's quite resource intensive, and for the area which is being proposed to look at the moment, like it's too big a task. Sorry, I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, no, it does, because I think that part of the challenge is to work out how we can, how we can help each other get to the end goal, really, of finding this out. So I think that is really useful to know. And Yeah, because I think it's just understanding how you operate, really, isn't it? Whether someone's got more of a strategic oversight of that, or as you were saying, you actually need to go down to more local teams to be able to obtain that information.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I agree, like the same as breaking it down, because at the moment I can give you contacts for broad areas and key partners, but then if we're wanting to deliver in certain areas with that, I can narrow that down and give you the project lead and things that would help. And I suppose that goes back to the strategy of, if you've got an overall figure that you need to get to across this massive catchment, it theoretically could be quite easy to do if you went out via huge numbers of the partners and said, can you deliver this, and then come back with all their pipelines and say, we can get you that through these number of projects. Whereas if you wanted things more joined up so they deliver multiple benefits, you might want to pick certain projects to deliver more and deliver in those key areas. So I suppose it's where the ask is, do you want it to be catchment, what, like the full within that blue line delivery, or more targeted around where some of those impacts are going to be?
Yeah, I would definitely support that for Natural England as well. That'd be, yeah, really helpful.
Okay.
Just to let you know, this room will close in 30 seconds.
Okay.
But we had longer.
Thank you.
Or did we? I think we've got another 10 minutes actually.
It says it's going to close in 30 seconds, so I think let me just check the programme. It says that we're going to do a roundup at, no, that's right, it will be at 15:45. Thank you so much for your contribution towards this, and I know that you know, often this is another delve deeper into how we